Okay, literally blew the engine on the way home. This sucks.
Oh, what a dangerous man, he got his mind right. Okay with being famous, but he can't stand the limelight. Knows enough language to reach the heinous and tainted mind, but when he open wide, they like God, who he sound like.
Okay, yo, it's your boy Stacks. So, I'm not sure how I'm going to start this, so I'm just going to start from the beginning. 2004 Infiniti G35. A car that's been on my radar, a car that's been on my bucket list for quite some time. It popped up on my local Facebook. The guy was asking $3 grand for it. I go over there. The car's a total piece of crap. If someone was asking $3 grand for a G35, I expected to have some problems. The guy said the clutch was bad. I go over there. The car is completely clapped out. I hated this car. I don't know what was going through my head, but long story short, I ended up buying it anyway. I don't know what was going through my head, but I just wasn't thinking straight. I bought it anyway. I made him an offer for $1,500 just because the car was in such a bad state. My intuition told me it wasn't the clutch, but I figured I could do something with the car anyway, and hopefully it wasn't the clutch. It turned out it was the engine that was bad. It blew up on me anyway. Okay, literally blew the engine on the way home. This sucks. Y'all can see the oil streak all the way back there. I can't film much more than this. I'm standing on the middle of the highway though, but that is the oil streak, man. Look at that. Well, there it is, boys, up on jack stands. We are gonna fix this thing, okay? I am determined that we are gonna fix this car. On the way back, when I was in the truck, I was thinking, man, maybe I should just junk this thing. Maybe I should just part it out. I honestly don't have the space to part anything out right now. I don't want to. I want to fix this thing up, sell it, and get my money back. And make some videos for y'all. Let's go. Yeah, guys, this is by far the worst purchase I've ever made, but we're gonna fix this thing. So when I tell y'all the engine exploded, I mean, this thing, look at that, yo. I'm telling you, the engine exploded, bro. That's like, damn. I was a little frustrated with the situation because I expected there to be a whole car, but in this case, it was a rice car. Most of the pieces in the engine bay that should be there were missing. All the guy had was one of those ricer intakes you buy at Advanced Auto. The engine started shaking, the check engine light came on, and that was that. Boom, engine puked its guts out all over the highway. The guy who was in the car behind me had to swerve out of the way. But yeah, I mean, that was that. The engine blew up, which absolutely sucked because I paid $1,500 for a car that's worth 500 bucks now. So at this point, I know a lot of you guys are going to start commenting, Stacks, you're stupid. What the hell were you thinking? You should know better than that. You should have done this. You should have done that. Here's the thing. This whole story is over. This whole thing is completed. I finished up the car. It's all done. The story is over. And of course, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to share this experience and this whole story with you all. So we started taking stuff apart. And just like it was when I was looking at the car for the first time, everything was always just downhill the whole way. I mean, as I was taking this car apart, there were things missing that shouldn't be missing. Everything in the front end was missing. The front bumper cover was just zip tied, which I already knew. All the plastic pieces in the engine bay, all the front wheel liners, everything that was supposed to be there was not there. So initially, my plan was to just get this car back to how it was before the engine blew up and just dump it off. sell it as a quick sale, get my money back, and get out from under this situation. However, as time went on, after the amount of work we were all putting in, I figured I may as well try and make this car nice, try and restore it to how it should be. All right, guys, I got this part of the exhaust off. These bolts were able to come off with the downpipe. Those bolts were not, so this part of the catalytic converter is still on there because all those downpipe bolts up there on the front, they all stripped out. So I chopped these off, chopped this one off. After taking out this part of the exhaust, took out the drive shaft, put a little put a rubber band and a plastic bag on top of this end right here so the oil don't leak out. Took out this top part of this shifter. So now I'm just taking off this cross member and this engine should be on its way out. All right, boys, finally got the engine out. This is the whole subframe where the engine exploded all over. This is part of the engine block. This is all parts of the engine block right here. And various pieces from inside the engine. I'm still picking out shards of metal from the engine bay. This is the main issue that we had with this engine was corrosion. Inherently, this engine is not that difficult to remove. Basically, you can pull the wiring harness out from inside the engine and boom, you can take out the engine with the wiring harness still attached. This exhaust manifold, this bolt I was able to get out, this bolt I was able to get out, this one rounded off. So the only option we had was to unbolt the manifold from the engine. This thing is so crusty. This thing is so crusty, so rusted, so corroded, we just had to cut them off. Same thing with most of the exhaust bolts. Let's show you all the carnage. Look at that. This piston is really jammed up right here. This engine is never gonna turn again. This is absolutely crazy. Engine exploded. I still haven't gotten the new engine, so I need to go find a new engine. I finished up, got everything tucked away. We got this transmission taken off and man, it stinks, man. You guys know how it is when somebody with a bad clutch blows by you on the highway and it smells really bad? That's exactly what this smells like right here in front of my face, except 10 times worse. As you can see, the clutch ain't too bad. It's not like it's even worn down that bad, really. I'll be busy tomorrow, so it's probably going to be 2 days from now until I get the next engine. So I'll see y'all then. For the new engine, I was really hoping that we could get a good deal, that we could find one for cheap, but that was just not the case. I ended up getting lucky, finding one for $800. I bought one from a guy who owns a JDM shop. I thought that I could get away with just getting one from a 2003 sedan. I was searching on the online forums for hours, and you have to get the actual JDM engine. So that VQ35 engine, They are very hard to come by. The going rate for those engines are usually around $1,500 to $2,500 even. We ended up getting a good deal on an engine out of a 2004 G35 Coupe with 124,000 miles on it. It's 2 days later. I have the engine. Here's the deal. This came out of a 2004 G35. It has 124,000 miles. This piece right here at the back of the engine where the JDM starter goes, it's broken off. I asked him if it fell off a forklift or something, like what the deal was with that. But no, apparently the car was just wrecked really badly, and that's what happened. Because of this damage, they dropped the price pretty significantly on this engine. Everybody else was asking $2,200, $2,500. It was $800. The $52.50 was because of some other parts I got and a plastic piece on the interior. After taxes, it was $65, which brought the total to $917.50. 124,000 miles is not super low, but it's good enough compared to this engine, which had 152,000. I'm gonna clean this off and we'll start putting it together. We got the flywheel swapped over. The crankshaft bolts were giving us issues. Those crankshaft bolts stripped out a couple times. I tried to just ram it in there with an impact. The first time around, all the threads stripped out on one of the bolts. Got another bolt from the Nissan dealership. I also cleaned out the threads with a tap. Alrighty. After we got the clutch put on, I made sure everything was aligned properly. I read the directions, made sure everything was aligned properly. Finally, it was time to put the transmission back together. I had to lift it up, put the transmission back on, bolted it all up, and that was it, dude. The engine was ready to go back in the car. Okay, I have the wiring harness put on the new engine. I got the exhaust manifolds and the engine mounts on. I got the catalytic converter removed from the exhaust manifold here. I had to take a sledgehammer and hammer on a 13 mil socket, and I was able to turn it and finally got it off. I know a guy who owns a shop. He let me go in the back there and use the hydraulic press at his shop to press on the new throwout bearing. I just gotta run to the store, get some parts. Then we'll be ready to bolt this transmission up to the engine and get it put back in. This is it, boys. I got the engine all ready to go back in the car. I've been working on this thing pretty much all day. Got everything, all the accessories on, the wiring harness, the transmission is on. In case any of y'all were wondering, this spot right here was where it was in a bad accident. It's not a big deal because I already have a piece to cover it. As far as this not being enough to hold the torque of the engine, I don't think that's gonna be a big deal. As long as the engine runs, it should be good. All I gotta do is get this engine put back in the car and hopefully it runs good. All right, guys, time for the first start. We are pretty far behind schedule, so hopefully this thing starts. The exhaust is not bolted on at all. It's open headers, so it's going to be loud as hell, but hopefully it starts. All right, let's go. Okay guys, it ran. Obviously, I expected it to run. This was not staged at all. This was actually the first start. I expected it to run. We have a lot more work to do. We still got to finish bleeding the clutch. We got to bolt up the exhaust and put the front end back together. That's pretty much it. I don't have a whole lot of time and we got to get this thing done. Let's go. After we had the engine in there, good to go, now it was time for the exhaust. And the exhaust was a whole nother project in itself. Now, before we punch out these studs, I want to show y'all the deal with this one. As you can see, the reason they were so difficult is there's a lot of rust in between the splines right here. The corrosion got in between the splines. As you can see, the reason they were so hard to punch out the first time is I just didn't get them hot enough. I had this blowtorch on it for a good few minutes before I started hitting it, and then they popped out pretty easily. But now we're just going to get these studs punched out and go on from there. Now what I'm going to do on this second one was the same thing I did on the first one. I'm going to cut off this head right here. So that way when I get the blowtorch, I can get some good heat penetration until you can see the circle. And that circle gets red hot. And do the same thing with this side, of course. And when you punch that, it should punch out right away. You see how you can see that whole circle right there? Where the end of the stud is, that's where you want to heat it so it glows red hot. Then I punch it out. Woo. Okay, for these mounts for the braces, what I'm going to do is take this pry bar, pry up like this, and there it is. I'm going to pop another one in there. This is the mount right here. So I'm going to try and pop something in here and pop a bolt in there, and that's going to have to do. Finally done. This is our new hardware setup. As you can see, I cut off those little fins that looped over the old thing, this old box thing right here that was holding that on. But now I just put in a regular bolt I had. I have this nut down there, same on this side. Just threw in a little bolt from the leftover hardware pile. Threw a nut on there, same thing down here. I got the old gaskets put on just to make sure I don't forget them. I've had numerous times where I forgot to put on a gasket and I got to take the intake manifold or the exhaust back off or something like that. So let's throw these on. Everything went back together great with the exhaust. No leaks. The previous owner unbolted the muffler from the rest of the exhaust, so it was pretty loud when I first got it. So I had to fix that up, get it bolted back together where it should have been, and it sounded great, man. I mean, the factory exhaust sound with the factory muffler, factory pipes, everything, it sounds really good on this car. You know, it's not too loud, it's not too quiet. It's a sports car, it has that nice sports car sound. Now, as I said before, the previous owner had one of those advanced auto intakes on there. I don't like how it looks. It makes the engine bay just look trashy. There's a tube that vents the crankcase pressure up back into the intake. It has that on every vehicle. With this advanced auto intake, okay, it doesn't have that tube on there. That could have had something to do with why the engine blew up in the first place. I figured I want to do this car right. And it's not that I'm some sort of hardcore G35 purist or anything, but I like a car to be stock. That's how it runs the best, drives the best. We finally sourced all the engine bay pieces. The engine cover was not the factory engine cover for the Coupe. That was a sedan engine cover. However, it fit fine. I also had to source a bunch of interior pieces. I had to source all the parts out of the junkyard, the air ducts, all the air ducts, the wheel liners, everything that's supposed to be there in that car. Everything that's supposed to be in there is in there now. We got all that sorted. It was good to go. When I bought this car, it didn't come with a center console, okay? It has this shifter thing, but it doesn't have a center console, a thing that goes around this e-brake and covers up the SRS module and all this stuff. So I tried going on eBay, all over the internet, Craigslist, Facebook, try and find anyone parting out a G35 Coupe. None of them have it. I found one guy on eBay. He's asking $400 plus shipping. Absolutely not. So what I opted to go for was I got the center console out of a G35 sedan from the junkyard. It cost me like $15. What I'm doing is I'm going to try and cut this up and get it to fit. I just figured I'd rather have something there than absolutely nothing and just have all that stuff showing. So let's see if we can get this thing to fit in there. So I cut out this center section and I'm going to do another test fit. Right now, I'm trying to get it to fit around the e-brake. It's gonna take a lot of test fitting and taking it back off and cutting it some more and so on. So let's put this on the time lapse. This is the final product of the center console. I know it looks crazy, but I don't mind it. I mean, it definitely looks better than before. We started cutting out so much to the point that I was starting to wonder if there would be anything left when we were done, but there was enough left. This entire piece right here was custom. Custom ingenuity. It did bolt up to the factory mounts back here. It bolted in right there, bolted into the other side also. This is a card holder. I'm not stupid. I know some people are going to say this sucks. It looks horrible. But to be honest, I expected the final product to look somewhat like this. And it doesn't look horrible, but it looks better than having nothing in that area at all. So I would rather have it like this than have nothing in there at all. It's also much better than spending $400 on just a center console also. So yeah. We also had to do some body work. I used JB Weld and filled in the holes for the bumper cover. We did some paint. The car ended up staying up on jack stands for a couple days while I waited for the new wheel bearing to come from eBay. We threw it on there and it was great. guys, this thing goes. This thing drives good, man. Everything that was in there, we cleaned it out. So we got the engine bay looking spotless. I drove it around. It's a nice car to drive standard with, you know. I know how to drive standard, but I'm not like, I'm sure all you guys know what I'm talking about. Like I know how to drive the thing, but I'm not very smooth with it, you know. We sold the car. The guy I sold it to, he loved it. He absolutely loved the car. He knew how to drive it well too. So, I mean, he had a lot of experience with those G35s as well. He's also a mechanic like me. All he cared about were the same things I cared about when it comes to cars. It runs good, it drives good, has a nice exhaust. That's it. We sold the car for $3,200. Not only did we just get our money back, we actually made a couple dollars. So after all the money we spent fixing this car and what we sold it for, I mean, our profit was $350, which is obviously negligible given the amount of effort we put into. I just wanted to get my money back and get out from under this situation, which is exactly what we did. If anyone else had gotten this car, if I had a shop and I was doing this as an actual business, I mean, that car would have been parted out and the chassis would have been sent to the junkyard, no question about it. We ended up saving this car from the junkyard, and that's really all I can say. I still don't really know why I bought the car. I don't really know what was going through my head, why I made a dumb decision like that, but I don't regret it. I don't regret anything I do. Even if something doesn't turn a financial profit, I still gain knowledge, I still gain experience from the situation. And I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful to share this experience with y'all. As always, I'm grinding. I hope y'all are doing the same. Y'all stay strong, stay healthy, and stay inspired. I'm out. Peace.